The Mafia kidnapped a harmless nurse, not realizing who she belonged to. Salvatore Bianchi thought Emma was just collateral damage. He strapped her to a chair in a dark warehouse and told Dante Russo to surrender or watch her die. Big mistake. Dante didn't come alone to negotiate. He brought 30 heavily armed soldiers and the entire FBI. But the most shocking twist, when the shootout starts, it's not the Mafia boss who fires the life-saving shot as the nurse. Alright guys, picture this. Emma Sinclair is vibrating with nerves outside the heavy doors of the Obsidian Club. We are talking about a hyper-exclusive, insanely rich private spot tucked into a quiet Tribeca corner. The kind of place that would bounce normal folks like us before we even hit the pavement. The brutal November wind is shredding through her thin coat, but let me tell you, it is not the cold making her hands shake. It is the velvet box burning a hole in her pocket and the incredibly dangerous name she is about to drop. Before we get into this madness, drop your city in the comments right now, so we can see how far this drama travels. And if you want to see if a 27-year-old nurse survives the craziest gamble of her life, hit that subscribe button. Stick around, because the next 10 minutes are going straight off the rails. So Emma steps inside, and guys, the Obsidian Club practically breathes pure wealth. We are talking Italian crystal chandeliers hanging over plush burgundy velvet booths. The security dudes are built like tanks, but wearing suits that look literally painted on. You have these shady VIPs whispering over liquor that costs more per glass than Emma makes in a whole week at the hospital. The lighting is that perfect Mafia mix, dim enough to hide your secrets, but bright enough to spot the cash. Before Emma can take 3 steps, a platinum blonde woman blocks her path. Posture straight as a razor blade. Name tag, says Bianca. She hits Emma with that fake polite smile, telling her it is a members-only club. But let me tell you, her eyes are absolutely ruthless. Lesson here, guys. Never trust a perfect smile. Emma swallows hard, but holds her ground. She tells Bianca she needs to see Mr. Dante Russo because something he wants. Bianca's fake smile drops into absolute ice, claiming the boss does not do unscheduled visits. But here is the massive plot twist, guys. Emma reaches into her pocket and pulls out that black velvet box. She pops it open, and sitting right there on the silk is a heavy platinum ring, engraved with a single letter. An R. You can literally see Bianca panicking for a split second. Her professional mask completely cracks. She raises one finger, and this massive enforcer steps right out of the shadows. Emma later finds out this absolute unit is named Marco. He stares at the ring for exactly 3 seconds, snaps the lid shut, and growls at her to wait here. Emma is literally counting her own heartbeats just to stop herself from sprinting out the front door. At beat 112, Marco comes back and says she gets exactly 5 minutes. She follows this giant through a total maze of hallways designed to completely mess with your head, taking lefts instead of rights, going down when they should be going up. Guys, the club music completely fades out until it is dead silent. At the end of this dark hall is a massive oak door built like a bank vault. Marco swings it open without even knocking. The office inside is pitch black except for a huge glass wall showing the Manhattan skyline, and sitting behind an ebony desk is the boss himself, Dante Russo. Dark hair, jawline like carved marble, and he does not even bother looking up. There is a crazy detail here you cannot miss. Dante has a faint scar on his left temple. It is the ghost of an old wound Emma actually recognizes, but the boss has zero clue about that yet. He slides the velvet box back across the desk and tells her she has 4 minutes left. Now, watch this power move, guys. Emma sits down without being asked, a massive act of defiance, which is honestly her only weapon. She looks right at him and drops the drama. She explains her ex dumped her to hook up with a wealthy heiress, and the wedding is in 2 weeks. She says she needs him to be her date. Dante just raises a single eyebrow. He replies super slowly, asking if she really thinks walking into his private club with a mysterious ring is a smart survival tactic. Emma locks eyes with him, zero hesitation, and says she does not think he is a stranger at all. Boom. For the first time, Dante's cold grey eyes snap into focus, sharp as a drawn sword. He states that she knows exactly who he is, and it is definitely not a question. Emma just nods, saying she knows enough, and she knows exactly who that ring belongs to. Suddenly, Dante stands up in this single, terrifyingly smooth motion. Guys, he moves like a literal predator, stalking through the shadows. It is that quiet, deadly grace you only see in men who treat pure violence like a casual Tuesday. Emma is fighting every survival instinct just to keep from backing away. He slowly comes around the desk, picks up the velvet box, and pulls the platinum ring out with his fingers. He rolls the ring slowly in his hands, letting the dim light bounce off the platinum. Then his voice drops into this dangerously sharp tone, demanding to know where she found it. Emma takes a huge breath. That fake story she practiced earlier totally evaporates the second she looks at him. Life lesson, guys. Lies just do not survive in a room full of predators. So she drops the absolute truth. She tells him she never found it. He left it under a hospital pillow in room 412, exactly 2 years ago. The second she says that, the ring completely stops turning in his hand. Dante Russo, a mafia boss who terrifies the entire city, entirely freezes. You can literally see the brutal flashbacks hitting him. The blinding hospital lights, the panicked screaming of a broken heart monitor. He remembers everything. Those small hands pressing desperately into his shredded ribs, covered in blood, but absolutely refusing to give up. He remembers her calm voice, cutting right through the chaos, commanding him to stay awake and look into her eyes. Dante slowly blinks and snaps right back to reality. He looks at Emma and realizes she was the nurse. Emma stands her ground, reminding him he came in with 3 bullets in his chest and massive blood loss. She looks this dangerous mob boss dead in the face and tells him he was supposed to die. But he survived because she simply refused to let him go. Guys, Dante gently places that ring back in the box like it is made of thin glass. It is such a wild contrast to his lethal mafia vibe. Then he just stares at her and whispers, 2 years. Dante tells her his crew hunted for her for 2 years, but the hospital swore no nurse with her name was even working. Emma just gives this exhausted smile. She admits she faked her name on the charts because she was terrified. She tells him she saw the massive Russo family crest tattooed right over his heart while saving his life. Dante's voice gets incredibly deep as he realizes she knew exactly who he was, and she still saved him anyway. Her response? I am a nurse. I save everyone. Talk about legendary main character energy. Dante steps so close that Emma can finally see his eyes are the intense color of a brutal winter storm. You can see the heavy gears turning in his head, unearthing some deep mafia history. He finally breaks the silence, confessing that the ring belonged to his mother. Dante reveals it was the only piece of his mother he had left. He left it under her hospital pillow as a massive blood debt, a promise that if she ever needed him, he would be there. So Emma looks right at him and says, I am calling in the debt. Guys, you can actually see the shock hit this untouchable mafia boss. He asks if she is seriously trading his mother's priceless ring just for a fake wedding date. Emma tells him she does not care about the cash value. She cares about the meaning. Dante stares at her for a long time before hitting her with a brutal question. He asks if she even knows why her ex dumped her. Emma instantly freezes, shocked he knows her ex's name. The boss just sits back with absolute confidence, reminding her he knows everything that happens in his city. His eyes are literally sizing her up like she is gold on a scale. He asks, she just wants him to play pretend boyfriend. And that is it? Emma lays it all out. She just wants to walk into that wedding without completely shattering. She wants to look her cheating ex in the eyes and watch him painfully regret everything he ever said to her. Dante goes completely silent. When he finally speaks, his scary Mafia edge is gone, and his voice is surprisingly gentle. He tells her he will do it. He slides that velvet box right back to her side of the desk, telling her to keep the ring. He promises to teach her something way more dangerous than just surviving a breakup. Emma just stares at the box on the polished desk, her fingers still shaking, totally frozen by what this crime boss is actually offering. Emma tells him she has zero idea what he means. Dante stands up and turns his back, staring out the massive window at the pitch-black river reflecting the city lights. He tells her straight up, "You saved my life, so I owe you a life back. Just walking you into a wedding is way too cheap of a payback for pulling me back from the grave." Emma asks him what he actually wants. When Dante turns around, the light hits that old scar on his head. For a split second, Emma sees the helpless, bleeding hospital patient perfectly overlapping with this absolute titan controlling the room. Dante drops his terms. He tells her he wants 2 weeks. She moves into his luxury penthouse. And listen to this, guys. He says he is not going to teach her how to put on a fake brave face for her terrible ex-fiancé. He says, "Miss Sinclair, I am going to teach you how to actually become unbreakable." He explains that when he was bleeding out, literally fading away, she was the only person who ever looked him in the eyes and said he was worth saving. Life lessons in time, guys. Never underestimate the power of telling someone they matter. Dante says nobody ever said that to him. Now he wants to return the favor. Her ex made her feel like pure garbage, and Dante is going to completely destroy that lie. Emma is holding back serious tears, looking down to hide her emotion. But then Dante's voice gets terrifyingly cold. He warns her that her ex is a senator's kid. If a notorious mafia boss walks into a political high society wedding, it is going to trigger an absolute war with the entire government. Dante reveals that fighting politicians is a line he has totally refused to cross for his 15-year reign over the Mafia. Emma, being a decent person, whispers that he really shouldn't do it then. But Dante is completely locked in. He says he has to. If he ignores this massive life debt, he betrays everything his mother taught him. The Russo family lives by one insane rule: honor before literally everything else. And right now, he is placing his entire honor directly in her hands. Guys, Emma physically shivers. It is not even fear anymore. It is the crazy heavy weight of actually mattering to a terrifying kingpin that the whole city fears. Her mind flashes right back to that chaotic hospital room, pressing her hands into his fatal wounds, begging him to stay alive. Look how the tables have turned. Let me set the scene for you guys, because this is wild. Picture this. Our girl Emma is slipping a quiet dose of painkillers to an absolute unit of a mafia boss named Dante right before his surgery. He absolutely refuses to let her call the cops. She tells him she will give him 2 weeks of her time, but refuses to abandon her patients. Dante gives a cold nod and promises to send his best protection, but he drops a massive warning. He tells her that the second people know they are linked, she becomes a prime target for his biggest rival, Salvatore Bianca, He warns her that his enemies will use anyone soft to get to him. She is terrified, but still nods. Dante holds his hand out across the desk to lock this crazy deal down. And here is your first lesson, folks. Courage is not about never being scared. It is about being completely terrified and still shaking the hand of the most dangerous man in the room. Dante looks her dead in the eye and asks if they have a deal. Emma stares at that same massive hand she had held 2 years ago when he was literally bleeding out, his pulse fading right under her fingers. She reaches out and locks it in. Deal. But get this, Dante does not just shake her hand. He holds on a whole second longer than normal, his thumb slowly brushing right across her knuckles. Total boss move. Then he hits her with the craziest line. He tells her he is not just paying back a debt, he is claiming her as his own for the next 14 days. He promises that nobody gets to touch her, nobody gets to scare her, and absolutely nobody will ever make her feel small again. Emma is practically deafened by her own heartbeat, but she nods. Dante just says good, tells her a car is coming at 6 in the morning, and turns around. Conversation over. That is how a real boss handles his business. Emma stands up, her legs practically shaking like jelly, gripping this fancy velvet box. She walks out into that dark hallway, knowing her life will never be the same. Fast forward to 5:45 the next morning. A pitch-black Mercedes Maybach rolls up to Emma's beat-up apartment in Queens. Guys, this car looks absolutely ridiculous. Parked next to a leaking trash bin and a rusted-out Honda. It is like dropping a flawless black diamond onto a dirty sidewalk. Emma locks her door, fingers trembling because she has not slept a single wink. Before she even reaches the curb, the driver steps out. He is this massive, dark-haired guy in his early 30s, built like a tank but acting super polite. Strictly trained hitman polite. He looks right at her and says his name is Luca. Always respect the quiet enforcers, guys. They are the ones who actually run the streets when the boss is away. Luca tells her he will be guarding her from this day forward and opens the door without dropping another word. They drive right over the Brooklyn Bridge just as the sunrise starts hitting the East River, making the cables look like glowing gold strings. Emma is sitting there, watching the entire city wake up from the back seat of a car that literally smells like freshly minted cash. And honestly, for the first time in months, she finally feels like the main character in her own story. They pull up to a crazy, tall, ultra-skinny skyscraper on Park Avenue that looks like a needle piercing the Manhattan sky. They take a private, unmarked elevator straight up. The ride to the 85th floor is so smooth, Emma does not even realize they are moving until the doors slide open, and what she sees is not just a rich guy's house. It is an absolute flex of power and dominance. This penthouse is absolute insanity. We are talking 3 massive floors of glass, steel, and black marble. It is so brutally minimalist that it feels freezing cold, like the place was built just to crush human emotions. Suddenly, this silver-haired woman appears at the bottom of a floating staircase. Her hair is pulled back perfectly, and she stands like a military general. She introduces herself as Giovanna, the one running this entire fortress, and tells Emma her rooms are upstairs. Emma follows her up, walking past a living room where a single painting hangs on a totally bare wall. I am talking $20 million worth of art, just chilling in silence. They step into the guest suite, and it is easily 3 times the size of Emma's whole apartment. It has a massive king bed and a vibe that screams unlimited wealth. Just look at the upgrade she got for saving a life. Karma always pays back with interest. The bathroom is carved out of pale stone, looking like a ridiculously expensive spa. And the walk-in closet is packed with gorgeous dresses in colors Emma would usually be too scared to look at. Giovanna casually mentions that everything will fit perfectly because Mr. Russo had her measurements taken while she was asleep in the back of the car. Emma just freezes and asks her what she means. Giovanna hits her with this tiny, sarcastic smile and straight up says Dante is a very good guesser. Emma lets out this startled little laugh. Honestly, it is the first genuine laugh she has had since her trash ex-boyfriend Harrison walked out on her. Then a voice cuts through the room. Dante is standing right in the doorway, dressed in a sharp black shirt and charcoal pants, looking like he has been plotting world domination since dawn. He simply tells her breakfast is at 7 sharp. Emma looks at him and asks if he always wakes up this early. Dante just casually replies that he only sleeps 4 hours a night. He calls it an occupational hazard. Stick with me, guys, because this breakfast scene is crucial. At 7 exactly, Emma walks into a kitchen built around a massive slab of white marble. A silent chef named Matteo drops off breakfast and top-tier Italian coffee, then vanishes like a ghost. Dante is reading the paper. He looks over and demands to know everything about Harrison Whitmore. Emma takes a nervous sip of coffee and explains she met her ex at the hospital. He seemed perfectly polished. They dated for 2 years and were engaged for 1. When Dante asks why Harrison dumped her, Emma says it was all politics. Harrison chose a girl from a huge real estate dynasty just to help his father win a big political election. Dante is not buying that fake excuse for a second. He asks her what the real reason was. Emma looks down, her heart absolutely breaking all over again. She tells him that 1 week before he dumped her, right at a massive charity gala, Harrison had way too much to drink. Standing in front of 200 wealthy snobs, he started laughing. Emma's voice cracks as she remembers it. Harrison literally mocked her, telling the whole room she was just a nurse. He bragged about dodging a bullet and coming to his senses before marrying someone beneath him. And the absolute worst part? The whole room laughed at her. Even her own mother laughed, just out of pure shame and embarrassment. Hearing this, Dante's eyes shift from a calm grey to this terrifying pitch black color. Lesson time, guys. Never mock the person who held you together, because karma has a very heavy hand and it usually strikes when you least expect it. Get this. Harrison actually sent her a wedding invitation with the words Emma Sinclair and guest printed on it like some kind of sick, twisted joke. Hearing this, Dante slams both his hands flat onto the marble counter, forcing himself to stay completely still so he does not break anything. He quietly tells her to eat. When Emma asks what they are beginning, Dante looks right at her. For the first time, she sees this quiet, violent promise locked behind his eyes. He drops the coldest line ever, telling her he is going to turn her into Harrison Whitmore's absolute worst nightmare. This is the ultimate glow-up revenge arc, folks. Right after breakfast, Dante leads Emma down that fancy floating staircase. It is to a massive lower level of the penthouse. It is this huge rectangular room with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and polished oak floors, looking exactly like an empty stage. She quickly realizes it is a private studio, like a mix between a dance hall and a heavy-hitting boxing gym. Dante tells her to just walk from one end of the room to the other. Emma hesitates, then starts walking. Her shoulders are curled inward like she is hiding. Her steps are tiny, and she keeps staring at the floorboards. Dante sharply tells her to stop. He looks at her and says she is literally apologizing just for existing. When she tries to deny it, he shuts her down. He points out how her chin is tucked, her shoulders are slouched, and she is breathing quietly, terrified of being noticed. He tells her that is the walk of a woman who fully believes she does not deserve to take up space in the world. Emma opens her mouth to fight back, but just closes it. She knows he is absolutely right. Taking up your own space is the first rule of survival, guys. Do not ever shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Emma realizes she has walked exactly like that her entire life, down the hospital hallways, in the grocery store, and into every single room her arrogant ex had ever occupied. Dante steps right up behind her, close enough to feel his heat. But he does not touch her. This is a massive green flag, guys. He tells her he will never put his hands on her without her permission. But he needs to fix her posture. He asks if she is okay with it, and she nods. His palms settle lightly on her shoulders, gently pulling them back and completely unfolding her. Then, one long fingertip touches right under her chin, lifting her head up by just 1 single inch. He asks if she feels the difference. He tells her she is taller when she stands like this, and that she naturally takes up more room. It is such a tiny adjustment, but the psychological shift is absolutely massive. She is finally learning how to carry her own weight in a room. Dante leans in, his breath just barely brushing the back of her neck. He tells her that this body belongs to her, and definitely not the men who constantly tried to shrink her down. Her pulse. So check this out, guys. They have been grinding for 3 straight hours, and Emma is absolutely exhausted. Her feet are killing her, but Dante is relentless. He plays the ultimate mentor, telling her to slow down because the whole world waits for her. He drops this alpha advice, saying if someone stares, you stare right back. Never look away first. Honestly, that is a solid life lesson right there. Stand your ground, no matter who is in the room. By noon, some juice arrives, and Emma just collapses, chugging it like she has been wandering the desert. She finally asks the million-dollar question. Why is he actually doing all this? She knows he could have paid off his 2-year-old debt with straight cash. Dante just sits down across from her, totally unbothered, and stretches out. For a split second, the big bad Mafia Don actually looks gentle. Dante hits her with the crazy truth. He tells her about that night he woke up at 4 in the morning, finding her asleep next to his bed. He straight up admits he could have taken her out right then. She knew his real identity, making her a massive liability. Emma actually shivers, realizing how close she came to the end. But Dante drops the real reason he spared her. He brings up the handwritten note she left on his nightstand. It was basic medical stuff about blood loss, but the last line hit him deep. She wrote, "Please live. Somebody is waiting for you to come home." Emma tries to brush it off, saying she writes that for everyone. But Dante just looks at her with those intense eyes and says, "I am not every patient." All right, picture this, guys. Our girl Emma is completely alone in the world. Mom is gone, dad is dead, and she's got absolute zero backup. But then, out of nowhere, the Mafia boss Dante drops a massive bomb. He reaches out at no warning, just gently touches her hand and hits her with the ultimate loyalty line. He tells her he left that ring so she could call him home whenever she needed saving. Boom, cut to day 3 at his insane Manhattan penthouse. The dude has completely transformed his dining room into this elite training ground. Porcelain, crystal, and 3 forks Emma doesn't even know how to use. Sitting right across from her is a total stranger. Life lesson time. Sometimes the family you choose is way stronger than the one you lost. Enter Senora Castellano. She is late 60s and walks around like she owns every palace in Europe. Dante calls her a quote-unquote family consultant, which is total Mafia code for something terrifying. Tonight, this lady is role-playing as Patricia Whitmore, the ultimate toxic mother-in-law. She hits Emma with this fake, purring voice. acting all worried about how Emma is moving on. You can literally feel Emma's old trauma kick in. Her first instinct is to shrink down, apologize, and hide. She immediately flashes back to her dirtbag ex, Harrison, laughing at her in that mass ballroom. But here is the thing, guys. You can't let your past abusers dictate your future posture. You have to stand up and reclaim your absolute power. This is the exact moment our girl snaps out of it. She lifts her chin, channels her inner mob boss wife, and fires back with the coldest, most polite venom. She basically says, "Thanks for caring, but I am finally putting myself first." Absolute savage. Over in the corner, Dante is leaning against the wall, and he gives her this tiny, proud nod. 3 days ago, Emma would have totally missed it, but today, that nod hits her like a gold medal. The Sonora gets ready to launch another nasty attack, but wait. Dante's phone starts vibrating against the marble table. He looks at the screen, and I am telling you, his entire vibe flips in a single millisecond. The lesson here: confidence is an absolute weapon, and once you forge it, nobody can ever take it away. Dante isn't just mad or surprised, he goes into full predator alert mode, which is infinitely more terrifying. He steps out onto the terrace with the whole glowing Manhattan skyline behind him, but he leaves the glass door cracked. Emma is watching him pace like a caged tiger, speaking this super fast, low Italian. She only catches 3 words: Bianchi, murder, and when. He steps back inside, and his face is literally carved out of stone. Emma asks if something is wrong, and he gives her that classic Mafia boss lie, telling her not to worry. But our girl does not back down. She reminds him that she became a target the second they teamed up, so she demands the truth. Honestly, boundaries are everything. If you share the risk, you deserve the whole truth. Dante stares her down for a long second before letting out this massive, exhausted sigh. He drops the ultimate plot twist as Salvatore Bianchi, his biggest rival, is having a secret meeting at the Plaza Hotel, and guess who he is meeting with? Senator Harrison Whitmore Sr. Yes, the father of Emma's garbage ex-fiancé. Emma's face goes totally white. Dante explains that Bianchi is trying to buy his way into federal politics. If he bags the senator, he gets the feds in his pocket and can wipe Dante out without pulling a single trigger. Emma is panicking, realizing this cannot be a coincidence. They are definitely planning something massive. Look, Gazumd, sometimes the universe throws your biggest mistakes right back at you, just to see if you are finally ready to fight back. Emma does the math immediately. If she walks into that Whitmore wedding on Dante's arm, the entire corrupt family will spot her. They will instantly know she is the Mafia boss's ultimate weak point. She tries to pull the plug, telling Dante she absolutely refuses to drag him into a mob war just to get petty revenge on her ex. But Dante is having none of it. He crosses the room in 3 massive strides and grabs her hand, locking eyes with her. He tells her he has watched her go from a terrified shadow to an absolute queen in just 3 days. He flat out refuses to let her back down out of fear. It is a brilliant reminder, guys. Never let the fear of what might happen talk you out of claiming the absolute respect and justice that you rightfully deserve. Emma is still terrified of starting a massive mob war, but Dante drops the hardest line ever. He tells her the war is already here. Bianca is coming for him no matter what. But the game changer, Dante says, having someone to protect actually makes him stronger, not weaker. Just let that sink in. Emma looks deep into his eyes, looking for any trace of a lie, and finds absolutely nothing but pure truth. Dante lowers his voice and promises her that her ex is never, ever going to forget his wedding day. From there, it is an absolute training montage. The next week is just straight fire. Emma learns to walk, talk, and dominate rooms she used to be invisible in. The real takeaway here? Finding your purpose doesn't just change you, it makes you utterly bulletproof. By day 4, Dante calls in the big guns. He brings in Celine, a legendary Hollywood stylist who circles Emma like a shark judging $1 million painting. Celine takes one look and declares she has perfect bone structure to work with. Cue the most insane wardrobe montage you have ever seen. They are rolling in racks of dresses that cost way more than Emma makes in an entire year as a nurse. We are talking the absolute hyacinth end of luxury fashion. Emma is stepping into silk and lace that feels like liquid metal. Celine is ruthlessly rejecting everything. The emerald is out, the nude illusion is trashed, but then they pull out this breathtaking, dark, burgundy gown. Listen, investing in yourself isn't shallow. Sometimes putting on the right armor changes the whole battle. This burgundy dress is an absolute weapon, guys. The silk falls like water with a massive slit up the leg and the entire back cut completely open. Emma looks in the mirror and genuinely does not even recognize the stunning powerhouse staring back at her. Dante is standing right in the doorway, totally silent, just taking her in for the longest time. Finally, he says those magic words, "That is the one." He guarantees her ex-fiancé will literally forget how to breathe when he sees her. By day 5, the training pivots to ballroom dancing. Dante is teaching her the waltz and the foxtrot right there in his private studio. It just goes to show you, transformation is a serious process. You have to put in the grueling work behind closed doors before you step into the spotlight. You and I have got to talk about the tension in this dance scene. Dante's hand is firmly planted on her back, and he is holding her like he is protecting her from a literal storm. As he spins her around, he drops a harsh reality check. He warns her that her ex will absolutely try to cut in on the dance floor, and she needs to know exactly how to shut him down cold. Emma is doubting it, asking why he would even bother. Dante hits her with pure psychology. Toxic men simply cannot stand seeing someone else value the prize they totally threw away. Fast forward to day 6, and Emma is actually back working her nursing shift. Dante's massive bodyguard, Luca, is standing watch outside the whole time. Life lesson: never let anyone reclaim you just because you leveled up. Emma's nurse friend spots this absolute unit of a bodyguard outside the emergency room at 3 in the morning and asks the obvious question. Emma just smirks and calls him a friend. Boss move. On day 7, Dante takes her out for the ultimate test at a top-tier Michelin restaurant. Emma absolutely crushes it. She orders the vintage wine without breaking a sweat and commands total respect from the staff. But when they get back to the armored car, Dante drops a massive truth bomb. He tells her she is only 60% ready. Why? Because the final 40% is actual belief. She still thinks she is wearing a costume. Then, out of nowhere, in the dark car, he asks about her family. The lesson? Faking it only gets you to the door. True power requires believing you own the room. Emma totally opens up to the mob boss. She tells him her mom is a teacher. Her dad passed away, and she literally became a nurse just to pay for her younger brother's medical school. Dante asks if her brother knows about her dirtbag ex. Emma says her brother is so furious he wanted to fly to New York just to break the guy's nose. Dante respects that immediately, calling her brother a real man. They pull up to her luxury building. And just as she's about to walk inside, Dante stops her dead in her tracks. He suddenly brings up the night they first met at the hospital, when she held his hand right before his life or death surgery. He demands to know exactly what she whispered to him. Sometimes, guys, the smallest acts of kindness end up rewriting your entire destiny without you even knowing. Stick with me here, because this is where it gets crazy romantic. Emma blushes so hard and finally admits what she whispered that night. She told his bleeding, unconscious body not to die because the world needed more handsome men. She totally thought he was out cold. But Dante gives her this rare, genuine smile that could melt glaciers. He admits he heard every single syllable, and he literally chose to fight for his life just so he could track her down one day. Are you kidding me? That is the ultimate flex. Day 8 kicks off just like the rest. Another brutal 12-hour hospital shift, saving lives while preparing for a mob war. She clocks out at 6 in the morning, smelling like antiseptic. Let me tell you, real heroes do not wait to be rescued. They go out and do the heavy lifting themselves. The final scene of the week is setting up a massive cliffhanger. Luca is waiting in the black vehicle like clockwork, but Emma is feeling rebellious. She taps on the bulletproof glass and tells him she needs to walk and breathe some actual outside air. He is stressed, but agrees to trail her slowly. The Manhattan mist is incredibly thick, swallowing up the sounds of the city and hiding everyone in this spooky silver fog. For just one beautiful, quiet second, Emma lets herself feel like a perfectly normal woman living a perfectly normal life. But you and I know peace never lasts long in this world. Suddenly, a dark figure steps right out of the heavy fog, blocking her path entirely. Just a friendly reminder, the moment you finally drop your guard is exactly when your past comes back to haunt you. Suddenly, Harrison shows up looking like a total villain. Long wool coat, shiny shoes, and a fake smile showing all teeth but zero warmth. He tries to play it off as a coincidence. But Emma is not having it. She calls him out immediately for stalking her. Harrison acts all innocent, claiming he is just worried because she is mixed up with someone dangerous. He steps uncomfortably close, reeking of his expensive cologne, and tries to intimidate her. He asks if she even knows what Dante Russo really is. But Emma does not back down for a second. She looks him dead in the face and says Dante has shown her way more kindness than Harrison ever did. Harrison just lets out this dry, cruel laugh, the exact same toxic laugh she once actually mistook for charm. Harrison calls her painfully naive, that totally mocking the idea that a powerful guy like Dante could ever care about a simple nurse. He spits the word nurse like an insult, trying to humiliate her just like he did at the gala. He claims she is just being used. The old Emma would have felt ashamed, but not anymore. This time, she feels absolute fire. She remembers Dante's training, keeping her spine totally straight, and refuses to look away. She stares Harrison Whitmore, the third right, in his eyes. This is such a boss move. She flips the script and tells him she can literally see the fear on him. She demands to know why he is so panicked when he already has his new rich fiancée, Victoria, and his dad is handing him a massive Senate seat. He literally has everything he asked for. She roasts him alive, asking why he is creeping around in the fog at 6 in the morning to stalk her. Harrison actually flinches. Emma says he cannot handle that she might be happy without him. The girl he called just a nurse is now rolling with a man he is too terrified to face. Harrison desperately claims Dante does not love her. Emma drops the hardest line ever, saying respect from a real man means way more than fake love from a little boy. Harrison loses his temper and grabs her arm, but before she can even blink, Luca appears out of nowhere. This enforcer moves like a total ghost, hand already reaching inside his coat for a weapon. He quietly orders Harrison to let her go. Harrison nervously backs off, his face turning bright red, and throws a pathetic tantrum, trying to flex that he is a United States Senator's son. Luca just smirks and says he literally does not care who his dad is. Harrison glares at Emma, warning her not to show up at his wedding on Dante's arm, before cowardly running off into the mist. Luca drives Emma back in dead silence. She is shaking until they finally reach the 85th floor. Dante is already waiting in the foyer, looking absolutely lethal. His jaw is clenched tight. He quietly tells her he saw the security cameras and is enraged that Harrison dared to touch her. Emma tries to play it tough, but Dante is having none of it. He coldly declares that Harrison just made the worst mistake of his life. Dante whips out his phone, firing off rapid Italian, and orders his top guys to dig up every piece of dirt on the Bianchi and Whitmore families within 24 hours. Dante realizes that if Harrison is acting this bold, he definitely has serious Mafia backing. The rival boss, Bianchi, is clearly pulling the strings. Dante tells Emma this upcoming wedding is actually a giant, deadly trap. That night, Dante completely locks down the Obsidian Club. The music is dead, the public is kicked out, and they head to a secret back room lit by moody amber light. Marco and Luca are already there, but the biggest plot twist? Sonora Castellano is sitting at the table. Emma suddenly realizes this sweet old lady was never just a harmless etiquette teacher. Dressed in all black, sitting there completely unfazed, she has the terrifying aura of someone who has been running under the radar mob meetings for 40 straight years. She is basically the family's master strategist. Now, stick with me here, because things are heating up. There is a new guy at the table named Enzo, mid-40s, bald, wearing wire glasses, and giving off massive spy vibes. Dante introduces him as the family's head of intelligence. Enzo does not even bother shaking Emma's hand. He just nods and slams a stack of surveillance photos onto the table. He casually announces they tracked a secret meeting, and guess who was there? The rival boss, Bianchi, the corrupt senator, and the absolute worst ex-boyfriend ever, Harrison. Emma is totally stunned. Enzo points to a picture showing Harrison drinking scotch right across from the Mafia boss. It turns out, Bianchi is offering a massive $20 million in dirty money to secretly fund Harrison's shiny new political campaign. Obviously, that dirty money comes with massive strings attached. The politicians have to push laws that protect Bianchi's shady smuggling operations. But Dante knows there is more, and he orders Enzo to share the rest. Enzo adjusts his glasses and drops an absolute bombshell. Bianchi wants Harrison to permanently eliminate Dante. He wants him to use government connections to build a fake case, or just straight up assassinate him. Emma is absolutely horrified. Enzo coldly explains they plan to stage a tragic, untraceable accident. Then the old lady calmly chimes in. She points out that the upcoming wedding is the ultimate trap. With Dante showing up at a high society event alongside a normal hospital nurse, the corrupt family can easily frame him for absolutely anything. They could spin any lie they want. A jealous ex, a hit gone wrong, anything. Dante looks Emma right in the eyes. He tells her straight up that if she walks into that wedding, they will try to take his life, and to tie up loose ends, they will eliminate her too. You would expect her to panic, but Emma just says they should cancel. But Dante is built completely different. He flashes this terrifying, cold smile and says they are absolutely going, but they are going to hijack the trap. Marco asks for the game plan, and Dante lays it out like a true mastermind. They want him at the cathedral? Fine. But the exact second he walks through those doors, his loyal team is going to blast every single piece of dirty evidence to every major news outlet in the entire city. Emma is completely shook. Dante deadpans that he is going to entirely bury a corrupt senator and a major mob boss in one afternoon. He promises This fancy wedding will be Harrison's political funeral and the absolute end of the Bianchi family. Enzo gets nervous, warning that this is basically declaring an all-out war. The feds will get involved and every rival crew will be out for blood. Dante calmly says he knows the risks, but he is doing it for Emma. Hearing this, Emma immediately stands up. She refuses to let him throw away the empire he spent 15 years building just to get payback for her. She will not let him ruin his life for her vendetta. Dante just slowly gets up, walks around the heavy table, and stops right in front of her. Let us look at this together, because this is the real turning point. Dante lowers his voice, telling her this is not some noble sacrifice. He confesses he has been waiting 2 whole years to make this move. Ever since she saved his life, he realized he could not keep living as a ruthless monster. She gave him a reason to change. The room goes dead silent. Then Dante snaps back into boss mode. They have 6 days. He vows that on Saturday, Emma will not walk into that church as a helpless victim, but as the queen about to change the entire face of New York. Cut to 1 in the morning. The meeting is over, but Emma cannot sleep, staring at the ceiling of this luxury penthouse. Feeling totally out of place, she finally sneaks out of bed and heads downstairs for some water. The massive living room is dark, lit only by the glowing skyline of Manhattan. Out on the terrace, she spots Dante standing by the railing. He ditched his suit for a white button-down with rolled-up sleeves. He is smoking a cigar, which she has never seen him do before. It proves just how much pressure he is under. Emma slides the door open and steps into the freezing night air. The city hums way down below them. She softly asks if he is struggling to sleep too, and he quietly replies that he rarely sleeps. She stands next to him as the cold wind blows her hair. Then, she asks the heavy question, is he actually afraid of what is coming? Dante looks at her and simply says, yes. No fake macho act, just pure, raw honesty. And that simple answer totally catches her completely off guard. Emma is totally bracing herself for Dante to put up his usual mob boss armor, right? But nope, the guy drops a massive vulnerability bomb instead. He is terrified, not of rival gangs, but of failing her. He is dreading that in the next 6 days, she is going to look at him like a monster. Emma asks how he thinks she sees him now. Dante hits her with the ultimate line, saying she looks at him as though he is worth saving. Sometimes, guys, it takes someone else believing in you before you can believe in yourself. Boom. Chills. A freezing wind cuts across the terrace right then. Emma shivers, and before she can even blink, this supposedly cold-hearted enforcer shrugs off his suit jacket and wraps it right around her shoulders, keeping her safe. The silk lining of that jacket is still radiating his body heat. And here comes the craziest flashback reveal. Dante drops an absolute nuke on her. 2 years ago, when he was basically a ghost waking up in that hospital, he saw Emma before anyone else knew he was conscious. She was holding his hand, begging him not to go because the world had lost too many good people. Emma is totally flustered and tries to deny it, but Dante remembers every single syllable. You and I are going to unpack this together. When she stepped out for a second, he took his own mother's ring and hid it under her chair cushion. Why? Because he wanted to leave a piece of his soul with her before he vanished into the shadows. He knew that ring would be her ultimate lifeline if she ever needed him. Guys, picture this absolute movie scene right here. We got Emma looking Dante dead in the eye, telling him she is coming back. Dante has been waiting 2 whole years, but he tells her straight up he never stopped thinking about the girl who called him handsome when he was literally bleeding out. That is some crazy loyalty right there. Emma is half crying, half laughing, and she finally touches his face. The boss tells her he is not going anywhere. Stick with me, because we are about to uncover what really went down. The lesson here? Real love stays locked in, even when the clock is ticking. You do not just walk away from a bond forged in pure fire. Dante leans right into her hand, but he still tries to warn her. He is a mob boss, guys. He has real blood on his hands. But Emma is not backing down for a second. She read his medical chart before saving his life 2 years ago. She knows this absolute unit took 3 heavy bullets just to shield a little kid. Dante is totally shook. He is looking at her like she is the only real thing in his world. Then he pulls her in for a kiss that has been brewing for 2 years. It is slow, deep, and heavy. He is finally breathing again. Life lesson for you today. Do not judge a book by its cover, because sometimes the guy with the darkest reputation has the purest heart. When they finally pull apart, Dante rests his forehead on hers and drops the hardest line ever. He tells her he is no longer a free man. He belongs to her now. Emma is crying, nodding, and she officially chooses him. Fast forward to day 14, the final countdown. It is 7 in the morning, and Emma wakes up right on Dante's chest. They have been sleeping in the same bed, but Dante is a total gentleman. He has not crossed that final line because he respects her way too much. He runs his fingers through her hair and tells her it is going to be a massive day. Here is your lesson. Real power is having complete control over yourself and respecting the timeline you set. Emma admits she is completely terrified, but Dante is not letting her sweat it. He promises he will be right by her side when they walk into that cathedral. Enter Celine, the ultimate glam squad, rolling up at 9. For 3 solid hours, it is an absolute battlefield of makeup and hair tools. Emma looks in the mirror, and the girl from 3 weeks ago is totally gone. She is a true boss now. Hair slicked back into an elegant style, smoky eyes, and lips painted a dark wine red to match her insane designer gown. Honestly, the lesson here is simple. Sometimes you have to put on your absolute best armor to face your biggest enemies, and quiet confidence is the sharpest weapon. There is nothing flashy about this dress, guys. It screams pure, untouchable power. Emma walks down the stairs, and Dante is waiting like an absolute movie star in a razor-sharp black tuxedo. He is completely speechless. He just stares at her. Knowing words cannot even do justice to this crazy glow-up. Then he pulls out a vintage leather box. Inside is a massive, heavy diamond necklace that used to belong to his mother. He tells her she has to wear it, because today is the day she officially steps into his Mafia world. You know the lesson here. When you elevate your circle, you have to dress the part, and carrying the legacy of the people who respect you is the ultimate flex. Dante fastens the heavy diamond chain around her neck, letting his fingers slowly trace her spine before stepping back. Then the house manager pops up at the stairs, checks Emma out, and gives the ultimate nod of approval. She tells Emma to remember one thing. They are not going to a wedding today. They are going to war. Absolute chills, guys. They hop into a black luxury car that slices through city traffic like a blade. Dante runs down the master plan. His guys have leaked a massive dossier to the major news stations. Everything drops at exactly 3 o'clock. The big takeaway from this moment: if you are going to strike back at your enemies, you better have a flawless strategy ready. The trap is totally set and ready to spring. The corrupt senator is going to be swarmed by reporters, and the federal agents are waiting just 2 blocks away. Meanwhile, the shady fixer is going to try to run, but Dante has hitmen waiting at the private airport. Nobody escapes this island today. Then Dante looks out the window at the city that treated Emma like trash. He tells her that her ex belongs to her now. You and I are going to unpack this story together and see how it ends. Emma grabs his hand and says, she just wants her ex to realize she was always the prize. Lesson learned here. The absolute best revenge is simply outgrowing the toxic people who never truly valued you. Dante squeezes her hand and tells her it is a done deal. The luxury car rolls right up to the massive cathedral, and the sidewalk is completely jammed with reporters. This wedding is the biggest social event of the year, and the press is incredibly hungry for drama. Dante steps out first, looking absolutely untouchable, and helps Emma out into the crazy, blinding flash of 100 cameras. The reporters are screaming his name, asking what a notorious mob boss is doing at a senator's wedding. Dante ignores them completely. He just gives a cold half smile and offers Emma his arm. Remember this lesson. Real bosses never explain their moves to the crowd. Silence is always much louder. They start the long walk up those massive stone steps, and Emma is putting on an absolute masterclass in confidence. She is walking exactly how Dante taught her. Head held high, not looking down, completely ignoring the screaming paparazzi. She floats up the stairs like she owns the entire city. Out of nowhere, somebody in the massive crowd spots her and starts freaking out, yelling about how Emma is rolling with the untouchable Dante Russo. Emma just gives the smallest, sharpest smile. The stage is totally set for a meltdown. Look, the lesson here is all about posture. Keep your head up at all times, because when you know your own absolute worth, the whole world has to step out of your way. They step inside the gorgeous cathedral, and the air literally smells like pure old money and expensive incense. Suddenly, the chatter of 200 rich VIP guests completely dies out. Every single head snaps toward the arched doors. Come with me, we are about to see what really happens when reality hits. Up near the front, the corrupt senator is laughing with his political buddies until he sees Dante walk in. All the blood drains right out of his face. His wife is so completely shocked she spills golden champagne all over her white pearl dress and does not even flinch. Down at the altar, the groom is standing there, clueless. Lesson time, bro. Karma never announces itself. It just shows up. Harrison finally turns around, and the second his eyes lock onto Emma, the guy completely short-circuits. His whole body goes stiff, and it literally looks like his brain forgets how to tell his eyes to blink. His bride is not even in the room yet, but he is already sweating. Dante smoothly walks Emma right down the aisle to the 5th row. It is close enough to guarantee Harrison has to stare at them the whole time, but far enough back to keep it looking classy. They slide into the pew like total royalty. The rich old lady next to them is shaking, asking if she is really Emma Sinclair. Life lesson. Your upgraded presence alone can completely destroy someone who did you dirty. Emma gives the sweetest, most savage, polite smile and introduces herself, casually dropping that the terrifying mafia boss sitting beside her is just her boyfriend. The old lady is absolutely speechless. Then the church organ kicks in, and the bride finally shows up. Victoria is wearing a magazine cover dress, but she looks totally cold, like she is marrying a massive bank account instead of a real person. As she walks down the aisle, she spots Emma and Dante, and she literally trips over her own feet. Dante just gives her the most chilling, polite nod ever. Victoria turns ghost white. Lesson here? You cannot ever build a happy future when your toxic past is sitting in the front row. Emma knows her ex is staring a hole through her, but she completely ignores him. She keeps all her focus totally locked on Dante, casually resting her hand right on his leg to assert absolute dominance. Dante leans in close and whispers that she is the most beautiful woman in the building. The wedding ceremony drags on, but it is a total disaster. Harrison is choking on his own vows, stuttering into the microphone while the whole church watches him panic. In the front row, the corrupt senator is already panic texting his heavy security team to call for backup. Always remember this vital lesson, guys. Pure panic is the first sign of a guilty conscience, and the truth always catches up. Dante casually tells Emma not to worry about the senator calling for extra backup. He already has elite enforcers locking down every single exit in the entire building. The priest finally pronounces them husband and wife, but their kiss is super tight and awkward, basically just doing it for the cameras. They start walking back down the aisle, but right at the fifth row, Harrison completely stops the whole parade. He literally ignores his new wife and tells Emma he cannot believe she actually showed up. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Emma looks at him with zero emotion, completely unbothered, and congratulates him on his fake happiness. Lesson learned. Closure is staying unbothered. You have to picture this absolute train wreck of a moment, guys. Victoria is practically yelling about holding up the aisle, but Harrison completely ignores her, demanding to talk to Emma. Big mistake. Dante stands up, and let me tell you, it is pure boss energy. He towers over Harrison, and the entire church goes dead quiet. Dante looks at him and calmly says, "Mr. Whitmore, your wife is calling you, and you do not need to speak with my future wife." The gasp I would have let out. Every single person hears it. Harrison turns the color of a ghost while his new bride drags him away. Honestly, it just goes to show that if you do not respect what you have, somebody better will step up and claim it. Emma is just standing there, completely shook by the flex. Cut to the reception, and we are talking about ridiculous wealth here. The Plaza Hotel ballroom is decked out with chandeliers, the size of actual cars, and a literal wall of white roses, spelling out the bride and groom's names. Gross, right? Then the doors swing open. Emma and Dante walk in like they are royalty, stepping onto a battlefield. Every single head snaps toward them. People are shocked. Some look absolutely terrified. And the rest are just eating up the drama. The gossip mill starts spinning instantly. The clock on the wall reads 2:45, and the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. It is hard proof that throwing massive amounts of money at a wedding will never buy you genuine peace of mind. The countdown to total chaos is on. We are exactly 15 minutes away from the biggest scandal hitting every single screen in Manhattan. Dante casually pulls out his phone, types one word to Enzo, and slides it away like a total pro. Right on cue, Senator Whitmore slimes his way over. He is flashing that fake politician smile he has practiced for 30 years, but he is sweating buckets. He tries to play it cool, acting surprised to see him. Dante hits him with the coldest smile imaginable, the kind of look a guy gives right before he ruins your life. He straight up tells the senator he is only there for Emma, the girl his son threw away. You can literally see the man turn red. It proves that the skeletons in your closet will always come knocking when you least expect it, no matter how much power you have. The senator tries to brush the drama off, but Dante shuts it down. Then he drops the absolute hammer. He casually mentions that the senator has been having shady private meetings right at this hotel with mob boss Salvatore Bianchi. Bro, the color drains from Whitmore's face so fast it is comical. He stammers, playing dumb, but Dante just tilts his head and asks why he is sweating then. Pure savage behavior, right as the clock strikes 3. Every phone in the room starts going off. It is absolute madness that completely drowns out that fancy music. Somebody gasps in shock, and another guest yells to turn on the television. Life lesson here, guys. Your dirty secrets have an expiration date, and the truth will eventually step into the spotlight. Over by the bar, a television had been playing silent footage of the wedding arrivals. Suddenly, a huge red breaking news banner flashes across the screen. We are talking a full expose on Senator Whitmore striking a deal with a crime syndicate. They roll actual surveillance photos of Harrison and a mobster in a luxury suite. The news anchor's voice echoes over the stunned crowd, spilling all the tea. They found the receipts. 3 secret meetings in 6 months and a $20 million bribe for political power. It is an absolute bloodbath of a plot twist. If you build your life on dirty money, the foundation is guaranteed to crumble. The Whitmore family empire is collapsing live on television, right in front of their rich friends, and the karma is so satisfying. The entire room freezes. Patricia Whitmore starts screaming that it is impossible, while Harrison literally sprints across the floor, panicking, begging his dad to explain what is happening. The senator turns to Dante, and you can see the sheer realization hit him like a freight train. He whispers that Dante did this. Dante does not even blink, bro. He just pulls out his phone and plays an audio recording of Harrison begging the mob to take Dante out for campaign cash. Pure savage behavior. 200 guests have their phones out, recording every single second of this absolute meltdown. How Harrison drops to his knees, looking like he just saw a ghost. It really shows that the company you keep will eventually define your downfall. Do not play in the big leagues if you cannot handle the smoke. You and I both know it does not end there. The doors burst open and 6 FBI agents march in, badges out, looking sharp in navy jackets. They announce the arrest of the senator and Harrison for bribery, conspiracy, and wire fraud. Absolute pandemonium. Guys, Victoria collapses to the floor in her $100,000 gown, crying black tears of ruined mascara. Her big day just turned into a federal prison speed run. Meanwhile, Dante gently guides Emma toward the exit, telling her their part is done. As they leave, Harrison is getting slapped in steel cuffs, watching the best thing he ever had walk right out the door. The truth is, chasing empty status instead of genuine love will leave you with nothing but handcuffs and regrets. Karma never misses an appointment. Harrison is literally begging now, shouting that he loves her. Emma actually stops and turns around. The whole place is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. She does not even raise her voice, because real power does not need to shout. She just looks at this broken man and tells him he never loved her, he just did not know what he had until it was gone. Boom. She loops her arm through Dante's and walks out of that hotel like an absolute queen. Cameras are flashing, reporters are screaming, and Dante just gives them a confident smirk. It is the perfect revenge, completely clean and bloodless. This is your ultimate sign to appreciate the good people in your corner, because once they finally walk away, they never come back. They hop into a luxury car, leaving the ultimate wreckage behind. Once they are safely in the back seat, away from the cameras, the adrenaline finally crashes. Emma starts trembling like a leaf. She can barely believe they actually pulled off the takedown of the century. Dante gently kisses her hand, reassuring her that it is a done deal. He tells her the Whitmore legacy is going to be ground into absolute dust by tomorrow. But here is the real plot twist. Dan checks his messages and finds out the mob boss, Bianchi, tried to make a run for a private jet, but Dante's enforcers intercepted him. They actually caught the big bad. Emma finally lets out this huge breath she did not even realize she was holding. It goes to show that courage is not about being fearless. It is about doing the hard thing anyway. You have to walk through the fire to get to safety. Back at the penthouse, she kicks her heels off immediately. Dante is already pouring some top-shelf whiskey, handing her a glass before pulling her onto the couch. She leans into him, still in shock that they won. But Dante is a realist. He warns her not to celebrate yet because Bianchi has a massive family and dangerous goons. There will be blowback. Then he drops some deep lore on her. He reveals that the shooting 2 years ago, the one where Emma saved his life, was ordered by Bianchi because Dante refused to corrupt the political system. It is crazy how everything connects. A powerful lesson here is that our past choices always pave the road to our future, and having genuine integrity will always make you a prime target for the absolute worst kind of people. This is where the story gets really heavy. Dante explains that if he had died that night, his entire syndicate would have shattered. By saving his life, Emma did not just save one guy. She protected over 200 families who rely on his empire. Emma is completely stunned. Dante looks right at her and says that after 2 long years he has finally settled his debt, but more importantly, he found the love of his life. Guys, the romance is real. They go in for a deep, passionate kiss, finally releasing all that tension from surviving this insane storm together. It really goes to show how the random kindness we show to strangers can echo in ways we never imagined, bringing us incredible blessings later. But of course, right in the middle of this perfect moment, they get interrupted. Dante's phone buzzes on the table, and the second he answers it, his entire vibe flips. His face turns straight to stone. He hangs up, and the look he gives Emma makes her heart absolutely plummet. Major plot twist time, guys. The guy they arrested at the airport, it was a fake body double. The real boss knew they were coming and vanished off the grid entirely. To make matters worse, the cops just busted Bianchi's sister in a separate trap Dante set up. Now, this ruthless boss has lost his political puppets and his family in a single afternoon. He is going to want blood, and he is coming fast. It is a harsh truth about picking fights with monsters. If you are going to strike the king, you cannot miss, because a wounded enemy is always far more deadly than a healthy one. You and I can literally feel the panic setting in as Emma asks who the boss will target first. Dante looks her dead in the eyes and says, "You." Boom. Biang. She knows she is Dante's absolute weakness. Instantly, Dante goes into full lockdown mode. He tells her she is never out of his sight again. Guards at the door, armored cars only, total secrecy. He starts barking orders on his phone, sending heavily armed tactical teams to protect his mother and brother out in Connecticut. Emma pulls her knees up to her chest on that fancy sofa, shaking. After facing down the cheating ex and the dirty politicians with pure confidence, this is the first time she looks genuinely terrified. A quick life lesson. True love does not just give you strength, it also creates your single greatest vulnerability. Dante pulls her tight against his chest, swearing on his life that nothing will happen to her. He drops the hardest line of the night, warning that if the mob takes her, he will literally burn the entire city to the ground to find her. That is some serious dark romance energy right there. Unsurprisingly, Emma cannot sleep a wink. All night, she just listens to the bodyguard pacing outside her door like a ticking clock. Around 3 in the morning, she stares out the penthouse window. 85 floors below, she spots 3 black tactical vehicles surrounding the tower, engines idling in the dark. The wedding drama was just a warm-up. The real war is starting right now. It proves that sometimes closing one messy chapter just drops you into a far more dangerous sequel. Stay ready. Alright guys, picture this. 3 days straight after the craziest wedding of the century, the whole city is absolutely buzzing. Emma S. name is plastered on every morning news broadcast, total lockdown mode, armored cars, heavy security, the works. But by day 4, Emma's like, nope, not doing this. She looks Dante dead in the eye and says she is heading back to work her night shift. Dante is freaking out, but she drops this massive truth bomb. If she stops living her life, the enemy has already won. That as lesson for all of us, right? Never let fear steal your identity. So, Dante caves, but he's not stupid. He posts a literal hit squad around the building. Fast forward to 11, and absolute chaos drops. A massive car wreck rolls into the ER, and everything hits the fan at once. The hospital floor is pure code red madness. Doctors yelling, feet pounding, and that heavy scent of trauma everywhere. Right in the thick of it, a random orderly taps Emma's elbow. He says a patient in room 412 is crashing and asking for her by name. 412, that hits her like a freight train. It's the exact room where she saved our boss Dante 2 years ago. She sprints down the hall before her brain registers the giant red flag. Why would a random patient know her name? She shoves the door open, but the room is dead empty. No monitors, stripped bed, just a curtain hanging a little too weirdly. Before she can even spin around, a hand violently clamps over her mouth from behind, a wet rag, reeking of sick, sweet chemicals, gets shoved roughly into her face. Everything just goes dark for Emma. Now, cut to 11:20 p.m. at the club. Dante's top enforcer, Luca, calls in pure panic. Boss, she's gone. We swept the whole building. Dante drops into his chair like someone just took a bat to his knees. A second later, his phone lights up again. Unknown number. He picks it up, totally silent, and, guys, who is on the other end? It's Bianchi, the ultimate rival. He sounds so amused, so incredibly calm. This is a dude who spent 2 entire years plotting revenge just for this one phone call. Dante immediately growls that if he's laid a single finger on her, he's dead, but Bianchi just laughs that twisted, arrogant laugh. He casually mentions he already has, adding that she's looking quite lovely. The sheer disrespect is absolutely off the charts. Bianchi mocks the whole setup, the little nurse who saved your life. So romantic, Dante cuts the garbage and demands terms. Bianchi wants a trade. Dante goes alone to a warehouse in Red Hook at 4 in the morning. No guns, no cops. If he shows up, Emma lives. If he ghosts, Bianchi promises to take her apart piece by piece and film the whole sick thing. The call drops. Dante instantly snaps into boss mode. He orders Marco to call the crew. But Marco actually blocks his path, warning him it's a total death trap. Dante knows, but he's not leaving his girl behind. Right then, the heavy doors swing open and in walks Senora Castellano, 2 in the morning, rocking a black coat and looking like an absolute Mafia queen who has been preparing for this war her entire existence. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? The Senora tells Dante to think like a boss, not a boyfriend. If Emma dies, Dante survives to take revenge. If Dante dies, 200 families lose their protection. It is harsh, but there is a real-life lesson here. True leadership sometimes demands the coldest choices. But Dante is having none of that. He reminds them Emma stayed with him when he was bleeding out. He will not abandon her. But he's also not an idiot. Within an hour, they map out a massive tactical strike. 30 soldiers will completely surround that warehouse. Dante and Marco will stroll through the front door, while the rest breach from every angle. Meanwhile, Enzo is secretly on another line, calling in the FBI to set the ultimate trap. Turns out, the FBI agents have been hunting Bianchi for months, and this is their golden ticket to bag him alive. By 3:30 in the morning, a fleet of blacked-out SUVs is rolling dead silent through Brooklyn. Back at the warehouse, Emma finally wakes up. It's completely grim. Just one yellow bulb hanging in a massive, empty concrete room. Her hands are tied behind a metal chair, ankles zipped tight, and her mouth is taped shut. Suddenly, a heavy door scrapes open. In walks Salvatore Bianchi, mid-40s, grey hair, and eyes that literally look like burning coal. The dude is grinning like an absolute psychopath. He looks down at her, says it is a pleasure to finally meet, and rips the tape right off her face, warning her that screaming will not do her any good out here. Bianchi tells her they are completely off the grid. Emma spits back that he cannot kill Dante. But here is the twisted part Bianchi does to want him dead. He wants to totally break his spirit and watch him beg, and he plans to use Emma to do it. But Emma is not some helpless victim anymore. She forces herself to stay calm and scans the room. 6 heavy hitters guarding the corners, 1 single door. That S when Dante's old advice hits her. When panic sets in, find an exit, find a weapon. That's a massive takeaway for anyone in a tough spot. Never let panic blind you to the tools right at your feet. And guess what? She looks down and spots a jagged piece of broken glass right by her heel, left over from Bianchi's dropped whiskey bottle. The game is officially on. Moving extremely slow to avoid making a single sound, Emma drags her shoe back and pins that sharp piece of glass between her heels. She starts working it up toward her hands. Just then, a low rumble echoes from outside, engines, heavy ones. At 4 on the dot, the giant metal doors groan open, and in walks Dante with Marco right behind him. They are completely empty-handed. No visible weapons, no backup in sight. Just pure, terrifying confidence of a man who has waited 2 years for this exact second. Bianchi is practically throwing a party, laughing and calling him an old friend. Dante just deadpans, demanding he take him and let the girl go. But Bianchi is not rushing anything. He slowly circles Emma's chair, trailing his hand over her shoulder. She refuses to even blink. Bianchi just snaps. He screams about how Dante ruined 10 years of his empire in a single afternoon and turned his crew into a massive joke. He wants Dante to feel absolute agony before he dies. So he pulls his pistol and jams it right against Emma's head. He tells Dante to choose who gets a bullet first. But Dante? The guy does not even flinch. His voice is ice cold as he simply tells Bianchi to look out the window. Bianchi peeks out and his jaw drops. The entire building is surrounded by a sea of headlights. Dozens of Russo soldiers. Bianchi smirks and says he can still blast them both before the crew gets inside. Dante just shrugs and replies, maybe. But can you look at the ceiling? Bianchi looks up and boom. 2 red laser sights are resting dead center on his chest. We're about to uncover what really went down here, guys. Those red dots, federal snipers chilling on the roof beams. Dante casually mentions the FBI owns the building now, and Bianchi has about 5 seconds to drop his weapon or catch a round. But Bianchi absolutely loses his mind. Instead of surrendering, he roars and starts blasting at Dante. Dante and Marco instantly dive behind some steel crates as bullets shred the wood around them. A second later, the 6 corner guards start firing, and the whole warehouse turns into a literal war zone of muzzle flashes. The Russo soldiers start breaching the walls, returning heavy fire. In all this chaos, no one is watching Emma. She violently saws that glass shard against her plastic zip ties until they finally snap clean off. Emma violently throws herself off the chair, slamming hard into the concrete floor. She starts army crawling behind a broken wooden pallet. Across the crossfire, Dante spots her and screams for her to come to him. She has to crawl 10 meters through pure hell. Bullets are physically cracking the air right over her head, showering her in dust and splinters. But right at the halfway mark, she catches something out of the corner of her eye. One of Bianchi's hitters is hiding by a container, raising a heavy rifle straight at Dante's blind spot. Dante has zero clue. Emma doesn't even hesitate. She launches her entire body at the guy, tackling him right in the ribs just as he pulls the trigger. The gunshot flies wild, bouncing off a steel beam, and the hitter stumbles backward. The guy's rifle hits the floor between them. He lunges for it, but Emma is way faster. Listen, she is a nurse. She has never touched a gun in her entire life. But sometimes survival mode just takes over, right? Her hands are dead steady. She scoops up the rifle, awkwardly jams the stock into her shoulder, and as the mobster dives at her, she actually pulls the trigger. The recoil almost knocks her over, but the shot blasts right through his shoulder. He completely collapses. Before she can even process it, Dante is there. He grabs her, basically carrying her back behind the heavy crates. He is absolutely terrified, yelling, "Are you crazy? What did you just do?" Emma just buries her face in his jacket, totally out of breath, and whispers, "I saved your life. Incredible. Stick with me, because this is where the payoff hits." Dante lets out this broken, emotional laugh and just presses his forehead against hers, but the boss fight is over. Out in the open, Bianchi spots them and completely loses it. He screams Dante's name, raises his pistol, and aims it right at Emma. Dante instantly throws his own body in front of her, but the gun never goes off. A massive FBI sniper round rips right through Bianchi's shoulder from the ceiling. His arm just drops, the gun hits the floor, and he falls to his knees screaming in Italian. Suddenly, agents are swarming every single door, yelling for everyone to get down. The rest of Bianchi's crew completely gives up. Bianchi gets dragged up in handcuffs and marched out into the night. With the threat gone, Dante slides down the side of the crate, pulling Emma with him. They sit on the freezing concrete. He is hugging her so fiercely, she can literally feel his heart hammering out of his chest. He frantically checks her for injuries, but she is just in shock, muttering that she actually shot a guy. Dante gently stops her. He reminds her she protected them both and that the guy is going to survive. You and I have probably both been paralyzed by fear at some point. But Emma's courage here is the ultimate proof that we are always stronger than we think. They sit there, wrapped in each other among the broken glass and gun smoke, until the agents finally escort them out. Outside, the sun is coming up over the city. The nightmare is officially over. Guys, picture this. The smoke has finally cleared over the East River, and the gunfire is swapped for the chill sound of Atlantic waves. Dante packed Emma up and got her out of the Manhattan chaos, moving her straight to the massive Russo family estate in the Hamptons. We are talking 0 neighbors for miles, just a huge, weathered grey mansion wrapped in ivy. And listen to this massive power move. For the first time in weeks, Emma is actually sleeping a solid 8 hours. Meanwhile, Dante just pulls the biggest flex imaginable. He officially steps back as the active boss of the Russo syndicate, handing the bloody daily operations right over to Marco. Sometimes in life, you have to know when to fold a winning hand to protect the people who actually matter. Do not get it twisted, though. Dante is still the ghost in the machine, making the big strategic calls from the shadows. But the messy late-night hits? That is Marco's headache now. And talk about brutal karma for the enemies. Salvatore Bianca is staring down 25 years of federal time with 0 parole. His mob family crumbled into dust overnight. Senator Whitmore got completely exposed, his impeachment trial flashing across every news channel. As for Harrison III, try 15 to 20 years behind bars for murder conspiracy. Victoria completely bailed, filing for divorce, and running away to hide in London. It just goes to show, whatever dark energy you put out into the world always comes back to destroy you. Now, you and I both know Emma is not the type to just sit around a mansion all day. She went right back to work, but traded those brutal night shifts for the day rotation as a charge nurse in the emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital. And get this absolute boss move. She just signed the papers for a brand new non-profit, backed by a cool $5 million from a totally hidden Russo shell company. Tonight, the drama is finally paused. She is just chilling on the Hamptons porch, swiping one of Dante's oversized sweaters and holding a hot mug of tea. Dante is right there next to her, kicking his feet up on the railing. Emma looks over at him and says she never thought she would feel this safe again. Dante looks out at the water and drops a heavy truth. He tells her that absolute power is totally addictive, like a drug you cannot kick, but it was never worth the risk of losing her. He could not handle waiting for that horrible phone call anymore. Emma leans into him and drops a massive plot twist of her own. She tells him her brother Tyler wants to meet up, and his anger is totally gone. Why? Because she told Tyler that Dante was the secret phantom who paid off his entire medical school tuition last year. Dante actually snaps his head around, completely shocked that she knew about his secret money move. Emma just laughs and reminds him she is a nurse who knows how to read records. You really cannot hide anything from a woman who pays attention. The two of them just sit there while the ocean tide rolls up the beach, letting the silence do the talking. Then Dante completely shifts the vibe. He looks at her dead serious and says he does not want to live without her, but his reality is never going to be normal. Even stepping back, they will always need heavy security and have to dodge threats normal folks cannot even imagine. He looks her in the eye and gives her a total out. If she wants to walk away right now and have a quiet, regular life, he will let her go and just protect her from the shadows forever. True love is not about trapping someone in your chaos. It is about giving them the freedom to choose it. Emma turns around on the porch swing, catching the last bit of sunlight. Emma totally shuts that exit door right in his face. She reminds the former mob boss that she saved his life twice, and they have walked through way too much fire together for her to just bounce now. Hearing that, the untouchable Dante Russo actually tears up. He reaches right into his jacket and pulls out a sleek black box. Inside is the ultimate flex. It is his mother's platinum ring, but he had it totally upgraded with a massive 3-carat diamond right in the center. He tells her he had it remade into an engagement ring, asking if she will finally have him. Emma is completely speechless. Tears are just falling down her face as she nods, and he slides the ring on. He has been waiting to do this since the very first night they met. They lock lips right there as the sun dips into the Atlantic Ocean, sealing the absolute best revenge against everyone who tried to break them. Fast forward 6 months, and the Hamptons estate is totally transformed. We are talking white linen tables, hurricane lamps, and the back garden opening straight up to the beach. But here is the crazy part. For a billionaire Mafia boss, there are exactly 50 guests. 0 reporters, 0 shady politicians. The only mob guys who scored an invite are the ones who proved their ultimate loyalty in blood. This wedding is flying completely under the radar. For the first time ever, Dante and Emma get to keep a moment entirely for themselves, proving that real wealth is having absolute peace and privacy. Let's take a closer look at this wild guest list together. Tyler is rocking a sharp grey suit he saved up for, nervously messing with his cuffs. Emma's mom, Margaret, is already wrecking her handkerchief with tears before the music even starts. You have emergency room nurses giggling in the corner, totally stunned that they are mingling with underworld royalty. Marco, Luca, and Giovanna are holding down the front row like absolute bosses. Enzo Buena is standing way in the back, arms crossed, constantly scanning for snipers, because old habits never die. But the most insane moment, Margaret actually walks up to the guy who used to run half the New York underworld and wraps him in a massive, genuine hug. Margaret looks right at this absolute lethal powerhouse of a man and thanks him for loving her daughter and making her happy. Guys, Dante Russo takes a deep breath like he has been holding it for 20 solid years. For the first time since his own mom passed away, he actually says the word mother out loud. It is a heavy, emotional moment. Then here comes Emma. She skipped the flashy designer labels and went with a stunning old-school Italian ivory dress from a tiny Brooklyn shop. Tyler proudly walks her down the aisle, his hands shaking until the very end. Waiting for her under a massive oak tree is Dante, standing next to the old Russo family priest. Sometimes, the most powerful people crave the simplest things in life. Dante drops his vows with a low, totally steady voice. He looks at Emma and says she saved his life twice, and he is going to spend the rest of his trying to be worthy of that insane gift. He swears to protect her and promises she will never feel invisible for a single day of their lives. When Emma speaks, her voice shakes for a second before she finds that absolute iron confidence. She reminds him she showed up with literally nothing but a ring and a wild, desperate plan. She tells Dante he didn't just save her from Harrison, he saved her from fading into a nobody. She promises to truly see him every single day until the end. They swap rings, locking in the ultimate alliance. Real power is having someone who truly sees your soul. They finally kiss under that giant oak tree, and the tiny crowd goes absolutely wild. And there is nothing fake about this cheering. It is pure, raw emotion. At the reception, Tyler stands up with his glass and delivers a killer toast. He points right at Dante and says, "The right guy for your sister is not the one who looks perfect on a resume, but the absolute unit who actually shows up when things get dangerous." A string quartet kicks in, and everyone is dancing under these cool paper lanterns. By 10 o'clock that night, the guests start heading out. Emma and Dante sneak off down to the wet sand, her beautiful white dress just dragging along the beach. He asks if she is bummed about not inviting any old college friends. Emma totally shuts that down. She tells him everyone who actually matters is standing right there. That is the ultimate life hack right there, folks. Once you know exactly what you want, you completely stop wasting your energy on people who do not deserve your time. They look up at the stars, and Dante drops a quiet confession. He wants kids, but he refuses to let them grow up in the violent, messy underworld he survived. He wants them to actually be kids. He promises to teach them that the world is a brutal, unfair place. But when everything goes wrong, your family is your absolute shield. And then he smiles and says he will definitely teach them to respect nurses, since their mom saved their dad's life twice. Emma just laughs and rests her head on his shoulder while the dark waves crash onto the sand. Listen to me, guys. If this insane Mafia revenge story actually hit you right in the feels, do me a massive favor and smash that subscribe button. Right now, drop a like and share this crazy journey with someone who needs a reminder about loyalty. Every single click helps us keep dropping these heavy, real stories. Emma Sinclair is no weak fairy tale princess. She proves that the quiet ones, the people society totally ignores, are carrying enough firepower to save themselves and everyone around them. Never underestimate anyone. It is all about recognizing the real value in someone's soul long before they even see it in themselves. And that is the real kicker, guys. This whole saga is not just some flashy rescue mission where the boss saves the damsel. It is a story about how real love does not just pull you out of the fire, it gives you the guts to take your own life back. Now I want to hear from you. How did Emma's wild journey make you feel? Have you ever hit rock bottom, feeling completely invisible, only to find that inner fire to stand back up? Was there ever that one person who saw your true value before you even realized it yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. We are a family here, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Wishing every single one of you amazing health, total peace, and massive joy. Thanks for hanging out with me. This story is meaningful, good, because it shows how one act of kindness can return years later in a life-changing way. Emma Sinclair is not rich, powerful, or socially important. She is a nurse who once saved Dante Russo's life in a hospital room, not because she wanted a reward, but because saving lives is who she is. 2 years later, when her own heart is broken by Harrison Whitmore, she returns Dante A.S. Mauritius and asks for help. That moment reminds us that genuine kindness is never wasted. Sometimes the good we do quietly becomes the bridge that saves us later. The first major lesson is about self-worth. Harrison humiliates Emma because she is just a nurse, as if her profession makes her less valuable than wealthy political families. But the story strongly rejects that idea. Emma's work is noble. She saves lives, carries pain, and serves people in their most fragile moments. Her value does not come from wealth, status, or marriage. It comes from her character, courage, and compassion. Another important lesson is that confidence can be learned. At first, Emma walks like someone apologizing for taking up this space. She has been emotionally diminished by betrayal and public shame. Dante teaches her posture, presence, speech, and composure, but the deeper transformation is internal. He does not create her strength. He helps her uncover what was already there. This is educational because many people who have been humiliated begin to believe the cruel words spoken about them. Emma's journey shows that dignity can be rebuilt through practice, support, and self-belief. The story teaches that venture is not enough as Harrison losing her, but the plot is bigger than personal heartbreak. Expose corruption, political manipulation, alliances. This shows that justice is more powerful than simple revenge when it reveals the truth and protects others from harm. Dante's character offers another lesson. Even dangerous, broken people can long to become better. He begins as a feared man, but Emma's compassion changes his direction. Because she once saw him as worth saving, he begins to believe he can live differently. His love is not only possessive protection, it becomes sacrifice, change, and responsibility. He steps back from daily violence and helps build something meaningful through Emma's nursing foundation. For viewers, the deepest lesson this is to define your worth. Does Dante by courage. The difference between those two perspectives changes everything. Emma's story teaches that real power is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet hand of a nurse stopping someone from dying. Sometimes it is walking into a room that once humiliated you and standing tall. And sometimes true victory is not proving your ex wrong, it is becoming so whole that his opinion no longer matters.